Welcome back to the Personal Injury Law Show, viewers. Before the break, we're talking about the responsibilities of drivers in relation to infants and children. Now, fellas, before we go back to the cases of Cheng and Sikora, can we go to the case of Manly and Alexander, Rob? Give me the facts, because that's where the High Court restated the position and the responsibilities of drivers on the road.
That's a very unusual case, Tony. In this case, we had two men who were extremely drunk. One of them was sitting on the side of the road and one was lying flat on the road, dressed, I think, in black. Driver's approaching, sees the man on the curb, thinks, I better swerve to the right and get around him, actually drives over the guy on the road, doesn't see him.
And he didn't die, Tom.
Surprisingly not.
No, and he brought a claim. And it was country road, dark clothing. I mean, the driver did exactly what anyone would do, see something on the road, drive to the middle of the road and runs over the...
Well, the person on the ground, he actually won his case.
He did.
But the High Court discounted it by 70%. So if his damages were $1 million, he got $300,000. Now, the important thing I want to mention to the viewers is the High Court restated the responsibilities of drivers. And in a short passage, they said, the exercise of reasonable care requires a driver to control the speed and direction of their vehicle in such a way that the driver may know what is happening in the vicinity of the vehicle in time to take reasonable steps to react to those events. Now, those words are very important when we're dealing with infants.
Yep.
Because those are the words we've got to look at when we're distinguishing Sikora with Cheng, why Cheng lost and why Sikora won. Now, let's go back to those two cases. Dom, tell me a bit more about the facts of Cheng.
Well, Derek and Cheng was where the infant ran between two parked cars. So had no opportunity to see, and she was hit in that lane, the infant was hit in that lane. So the driver had no opportunity to see the child until he hit the child.
And, Rob, the driver was driving under the speed limit.
That's right, well under the speed limit.
Now, tell us a bit more about Sikora. What were the effects of that case?
Well, in that case, as we've described, these kids were visible to the driver as the driver was approaching. A ball rolled onto the road when perhaps the driver was even up to 40 metres away from the kid. Then the child followed the ball when she was again about 25 metres from the kid. She had ample opportunity to see the child coming. And again, as you said, she didn't brake. She went into some kind of defensive slide,
Yeah.
you know, fast and furious kind of manoeuvre instead of actually braking the car, which was the reasonable thing to do.
But the child was struck almost on the other side of the road.
That's right.
That's right.
So the court said that the driver should have seen the child and that there were children playing, because she said that she did see children playing. And the court said she should have seen the ball bouncing on the road if she was keeping a proper lookout and if she was vigilant. Now, the other thing that's important is that when you're dealing with infants darting out between cars and things like that, if it's near a school, that should raise the awareness of the driver. Isn't that right, Don?
That's right.
If you're near a bus stop.
Playgrounds.
What else, Rob?
Any kind of area we can find children. So again, shops, any real suburban areas where there might be kids playing.
Luna Park.
You name it, the list goes on.
And
footy grounds, cricket grounds, all this sort of business.
Pay attention anywhere.
These cases are all or nothing for the plaintiff, because infant plaintiffs are not guilty of contributory negligence.
Well, they can't. I mean, they don't know what they're doing.
So it's all or nothing. If the defendant's guilty of negligence, then the plaintiff is entitled to all the damages without any reduction for contributory
But can I
negligence.
also say, notwithstanding the fact that we're trying to lay blame on the drivers, this doesn't take away from the responsibility of parents to ensure that they've got the children in control. They can't just dart out.
That's right. It really comes down to also adequate supervision from the parents, which is just of paramount importance.
Let's do one more case, Don. You know the one of the case of Wensick and Marshall, a 2010 decision.
Yes.
Where, sadly, again, the infant plaintiff lost.
Infant plaintiff on a bicycle was coming down a court into a T-junction and crosses the road. The infant was with the older brother and sister, and was hit by a car coming the other way.
Now, Rob, what else can you tell us about the facts of this case?
Well, in this case, the kids were travelling about 30 kilometres down this hill. Now, the facts show that there was actually a car turning into that street, and the kids almost collided with this other car. They actually swerved around it. Now, the brother and the sister went to the left of the car, but the plaintiff actually swerved to the right of the car and was now travelling...
Into the path of the car?
Into the path of this other vehicle that was travelling along the T intersection. So this fella, the defendant, actually came into contact with the plaintiff right at the intersection. They basically collided at that point.
Well, there's two additional pieces of information and evidence that were crucial to this case. One, the driver was going significantly under the speed limit again.
Yep.
And two, he
View
had no...
Yeah.
There was nothing special about this street. It was just another suburban street.
It's Dunstone Street, and we've got some graphics that will show that there was actually the view of the driver, as you'll see in the graphics, was obscured by this large bush and shrubs and trees and all that. So,
well, does that raise liability on the council?
well, in this case, they didn't raise it against the council, it just brought a claim against the defendant driver.
Just curiously, Rob, do you think if the court found that the bushes and trees obscured the vision of drivers as a whole, should they have sued the council as well?
Look, there's always a potential for an action like that, and it'll come down very much to its facts. I mean, from what we saw in these facts, it was quite a normal corner, and there are a lot of corners that are obscured, and this bush might actually have been on a private property anyway, which brings another cause of action into it.
Now, in this case, Tony, you had a driver driving a Land Cruiser with a bull bar and a ton of wood in the back. It was a killer machine. So it was like Goliath dressed up in a ton of metal. David had no chance. And that's what I think the trial judge at first instance found. He had sympathy for the plaintiff and thought, well, you know, who's driving the killer machine in this case?
Yeah, but the evidence again was that he was driving significantly less than the speed limit.
That's right. And the trial judge even said, again, in these circumstances, that even though he was 20 below the speed limit, he could have gone even slower. And that goes at odds with what was said in Chung again.
Yeah,
well, he was using hindsight and said he should have looked, should have seen, should have did this, did that. But unfortunately, it did go to the Court of Appeal, Tony. And the Court of Appeal found for the defendant that there was no negligence. Again, similar to Derek and Chung, the driver had no opportunity to see the child before the actual incident occurred.
The interesting thing is that this involves a cyclist, albeit an infant cyclist. The other day, coming through the city, I was surrounded by motorbikes and cyclists. I didn't know which way to look, and my mind was my eyes were going everywhere because they're darting in and out and everything else. Now, it raises the issues we've been discussing. They have to be careful, don't they?
Look, I think that's right. That's right. And at the end of it all is that who's driving the machine, the lethal weapon, the killer machine? You have to take care, look around, and observe indicators such as shops, playgrounds, and things like that, because there's a high risk that children might run out.
Rob, what do you want to say by finishing off when you're dealing with infants and children?
Look, there's only a few things you can really say. If you're driving in suburban areas or anywhere where there might be children, just take extra care, shave 5 kilometres off just to be sure you don't hit anyone. If you have children, make sure they're adequately supervised outside if they're playing in the streets. And if there's any kids watching, make sure you don't play next to the road and don't run out on the road.
Yeah, look, and Don, is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, look, it's as simple as just keep a proper lookout, Tony. They must keep a proper lookout.
One of the things that was telling and went against the actual plaintiff infant in this case was the fact that an independent witness said that he was driving significantly less than the speed limit.
That's right.
Anyway, viewers, I want to thank you for watching this. Don, Rob, thanks for coming on board.
Thanks, Tony.
We're going to a sponsors break again, and after the break, we're going to the mailbag. So please don't go away. Stay tuned. Don't go to any other channels. We'll be back shortly. Thank you.